I'm Mishka, and welcome back to my channel. So in today's episode of Our Beginnings and Always, we are going to be continuing with Derek's moment, or DLC moment, I guess. And we're going to be doing the last one, Boardwalk, today. Oh my god, I can't believe we're almost done with Derek's moments in step 2, and then we have step 4 left. Oh no, why is it almost halfway over? But yeah, that's what we're going to be doing today. But before we get started, make sure to subscribe and share this video with your friends so they can find out about my amazing channel just like you have right now. So yeah, let's get into it. I hope you enjoy. Boardwalk! It was early morning, but the day was already buzzing with excitement. Your whole family is gathered together with all 5 𝐍𝐸 in their cozy living room. Today we were all making a trip to a boardwalk set park. It was a regular enough outing for Derek's family, but it would be your first time going. The boardwalk was a few hours away, and it was even further when setting off from Sunset Bird. That's why the adults decided on the meet up here at the 𝐍𝐸's apartment instead of gathering at the boardwalk itself. It gave your mom's little break from driving, and everyone got their last chance to run for the bathroom. You would be leaving very soon. While you waited for the trip to officially start, you sat on the couch with your laps in your hand, or with your hands in your lap. Oh my god, with your laps in your hand. For a few minutes, you tried to keep track of what the group was gathered around the kitchen counter were up to. Elizabeth, your moms, and Mrs. 𝐍𝐸 were all busily making preparations from what you could tell. Meanwhile, Mr. 𝐍𝐸 had his hands full rounding up his 2 youngest kids. It seemed they were taking Auntie's shoes stance that morning, and in 𝐸𝐸's case, he needed to be talked into wearing a shirt too. On the cushion next to you, Derek was pumped for what the boardwalk had to offer. He was rambling a mile a minute about all the fun stuff he couldn't wait to show you. Aww. You were simply happy because Derek was happy. His animated and colorful descriptions and stories about the boardwalk had you grinning ear to ear. You could have easily spent all day listening to him like this. The journey was also the first time your and Derek's families were doing a big activity together. You couldn't believe it originally when the adults went through with organizing the trip.
Let's go.
Kids, come join us in the kitchen. It's time to pack your treat bags. Cool. Sliding off the couch, you didn't have the faintest idea what Mrs. 𝐍𝐸 meant, but you were summoned, and so you followed Derek's lead. He turned something over his shoulder. He guessed that line might have been confusing to a newcomer. The snack bags are what we do for larger trips. Me and my brothers and you and Elizabeth too. We get to fill a little plastic baggie with any sweets and stuff we want. It's supposed to be for eating during the hours-long drive, but no one really cares when we snack. It's just so we have something if we need it. I like that. It's really nice. I think so too. It's great to have on hand. As you reach the kitchen, Elizabeth breezed past you with your moms following at a more relaxed pace. Derek raised a skeptical eyebrow and pointed in her direction with his thumb. Doesn't she want a bag? Elizabeth stopped and spun around on her heel. Surprised, Derek pulled his hand back to his side. Elizabeth's lips curled into an all-too-pleased smirk. You heard Mrs. 𝐍𝐸. She called for the kids to come. Ma shook her head as Elizabeth's taunting display. Your sister stepped forward, held up a zig bag that you didn't notice before. I already got mine when we were setting things up for the rest of you. Her baggie was full of dried fruits and chocolate chips. She teasingly dangled it in your face and then Derek's. Uh-huh, very mature, Elizabeth. You're not one of the kids at all. You stuck out your tongue. Elizabeth snatched her bag of treats out of possible licking range and held it safely to her chest. Wiggling the tip of your tongue, you and Mom both started giggling the whole exchange. Yeah, compared to that, I'm basically 30. After that, she left the kitchen and plopped down in your old spot on the couch. Your mom joined her, putting Elizabeth in the middle, Ma comfortably patting Elizabeth's leg. Glancing back towards the kitchen, George and 𝐸𝐸 were finally dressed and they dashed ahead of you. They excitedly crowded around their mom's legs. Now, don't forget that the bag actually has to be able to close for it to count. She began passing baggies to her youngest, and the Mr. 𝐍𝐸 turned to you and winked. That's my one rule for the treat bags, but other than that, feel free to go crazy. 𝐸𝐸 and George took that as their cue to rush up to the counter lined with tasty options and started stuffing their bags. Mrs. 𝐍𝐸 handed you and Derek your own plastic baggies. Now that it was in your hand, you realized it was the smallest stick bag size. There was no way you were going to get a little bit of everything. From my experience, you can fit about 4 handfuls of stuff before it starts getting too tough to close. I had to strategize and things. Oh my god. The younger boys swiftly finished selecting their road trip treats. George's bag closed easily, while 𝐸𝐸's was proving a challenge to squeeze shut. The plastic was ballooned on the sides, entirely full of cookies and candy. His brow pinched as he struggled with the zip. To everyone's surprise, Nicholas got it to seal, and he proudly held the bag up for his mom's inspection. She nodded. Don't forget to take a water bottle too. We don't want anyone to lose hydration today. The two boys held their prizes tightly and grabbed the water bottles off the edge of the counter on the way out of the kitchen. It was your turn now at the buffet, and the spread was delicious. Oh! Cereal? Oh my god. So we got fruit gummy candies, peanuts, almonds, walnuts, plain crackers, sunflower seeds, shortbread cookies, chocolate chips, granola. Ooh, I want shortbread and chocolate chips and fruit gummy candies. Oh, and sandwich cookies? Yes. Enjoy. Humming happily, you ran your hand across the side of the plastic baggie. You were grateful for your haul and you proudly showed it to Derek. He gave you a thumbs up. Variety is the spice of life. He closed his bag and then you realized it was completely full of a bunch of different things too. Chuckling, you gently poked the straining side of his plastic baggie. Yeah, it is. Derek leaned across the counter for the water bottles. He slid one over to you for you to take and grab one for himself too. Okay, close up the packs, then we can leave this out here for now. We don't have any more time to lose. Are we all ready? Several voices called back, answering yes. Mrs. Suarez raised an eyebrow and walked out of the kitchen. No one needs to go potty? No.
No.
I don't have to go potty. Good. Anyone have questions before we go? She put her hands on her hips and glanced around the apartment. Mr. Suarez raised a hand just as he caught her eye. I'd like to know how we will arrange the rides. There's room for 5 in the back of our car and room for 3 in the Taylor car. There is room to switch who is bringing who if there's a want for it. Oh, I'm glad you brought that up. Elizabeth and May are welcome to ride with us, or Derek can feel free to go with Pamela and Nolani. Nicholas and George are staying in our van, though. Frustrated, both smaller boys pouted at their exclusion. George's jaw clutched as he crossed his arms. I'm not a baby. Why do I gotta stay in the van? I'm not a baby. Nicholas, you know you still need a booster car. We can't put that in their car. Mr. Suarez chuckled at Nicholas's angry grumbling as he passed by into the kitchen, aiming to pick at the remaining snacks. Mrs. Suarez sighed in a tickled but a still long-suffering way. Dad, I need you to stay awake for such a long drive. Can you two please keep us company on the car ride? Releasing a deep breath, George nodded. He knew this wasn't the day his mom was going to relent. Nicholas, on the other hand, continued to pout. Okay, Mom. Well, what do you think, Lonnie? Either way is fine with me. It's up to the kids to decide which they prefer. I'll stick with Mom's. She then curiously shifted her attention to you. The corner of her mouth pulled into a smirk because she knew that you and your friend were the ones that the whole decision was for. Derek leaned in close to you, cupping a hand to the side of his mouth so only you could hear him. May, what are you thinking? What are you thinking? Oh, oh my god. He edged back and nervously scratched the side of his neck as she turned a darker shade of pink. Well, it'd be cool if you rode with me and my family. Then let's go with your idea. Really? Cool.
Let's go.
Okay, now that that's settled, we'll see you there.
Take care.
See you soon, sweetie.
Oh,
Hold on, one last thing. Mrs. Suarez went over to your mom's and quickly went into some last advice on the directions. While you waited, you noticed at the corner of your eye that Mr. Suarez had moved on from niggling at the snacks. Instead, you got him passing George and Nicholas an extra cookie each. Genuine cheer came back to both of their expressions. They were so thrilled about the secret cookies that their earlier bitterness about being babied was all sweetened out. And that was that. Snacks and drinks were set. No one needed to go potty. The rides were arranged, directions were obtained, and it was finally time to get the trip started. The two families left the condo behind, chatting with eagerness for the day's activities. At the parking lot, the group split up to get into their different cars. You followed Derek into his parents' minivan. Buckling up, you settled in for the long haul. There we go. Or here we go, whatever the hell it was. The Suarez minivan was a full house. Mr. Suarez hopped behind the wheel with his wife sitting shotgun. She bent back to double check that Nicholas was fully strapped into the car seat behind her. Derek, of course, had to sit in the open window in that second row. That left you and George to take control of the back. Mrs. Suarez's brow furrowed with frustration. Once again became about the wiggling 6-year-old fought against her attempt to tighten the car seat's front straps. Once she succeeded, Mrs. Suarez brushed the hair that fell forward behind her ear and turned to the rest of you with a lighter expression. Are we all ready? Yes. Yeah, Mom. Yep, all set.
Very good.
Good. She made sure Nicholas was secured one last time before getting herself situated properly. You heard the click of her seatbelt and Mrs. Suarez shifted her attention this time to the last row of seats. It's so nice to have you here, May. Thanks for having me. Of course, all of us are happy for the added company. Now that everyone was settled in, the car roared to life and Mr. Suarez pulled onto the road. Out of habit, he reached over and clicked the CD player on. Upbeat children's music loudly filled the car. Squealing with excitement, Nicholas started kicking his seat to the beat of the song. Next to you, George leaned an elbow on the car door and rested his chin in the palm of his hand. There was a faint smile tugging at the corner of his mouth as he settled in to stare out the window. You caught Derek's green-eyed gaze peeking at you from the space between the headrest and the backrest of the seat. You waved at him. Derek moved out of sight, but only to twist around the seat to talk to you directly. Oh my god, I can't talk!
It's all good.
Thanks for coming with us on the drive. I can't wait for you to see the boardwalk. It's gonna be so much fun. You only got as far as opening your mouth when Nicholas erupted into a stream of loud cheers. The young boy threw both of his arms in the air, and Derek ducked in his seat, clearly embarrassed. Woo! Nicholas's birth didn't surprise you one bit. A tiny chuckle escaped Derek as he slowly slid his gaze back over to you. Sorry about that, May. This whole drive is probably gonna be this rowdy. I don't mind. You joined in the celebration, chatting about the day's plan. All three brothers jumped in to tell you about all their favorite places and which rides they considered to be the coolest. Even Derek's parents chimed in with their favorite spots to visit. Later during the drive, Nicholas let out a gleeful squeal. You were confused at first at what managed to get that reaction out of him, but soon it became clear. Nicholas remembered he had an entire baggie of snacks. He had triumphantly pulled it out of his pocket and started munching away at all the tasty treats inside. For once, George followed Nicholas's lead and relaxed into a chill snack time. George munched away while watching the world pass by out his window. Derek, on the other hand, slowly rested back into his seat with his arms behind his head. You saved all your snacks for later. Resting your head back, you had a hunch that these snacks would be a lifesaver once your stomach started growling later. After Nicholas had devoured every crumb and licked every bit of sugar from his fingers, he was ready to play again. And so the ride continued on to the blasting beat of classic kindergarten tunes with fun road trip games. And despite the trip supposedly taking hours, it didn't feel long until you noticed the first sign of your destination. With building anticipation, you caught the first flashes of the tall rides in the distance. Both families pulled into the parking lot and the kids excitedly bounced out of the cars. The parents cheerfully waved at each other as the groups closed the distance between them. With everyone regrouped, the family strolled onto the boardwalk. Your eyes widened. The place was even more amazing than you'd imagined. Oh crap, dude! Oh my god! It was like you stepped into a bright world of color. There were shops displaying various beach towels and boogie boards, decorated with either popular cartoon characters or tropical flowers. Clothing stalls had racks of sundresses, cover-ups, and swimwear in every pattern imaginable. Ahead, you could make out the colorful tops of stuffed animals from the prize boards. Oh my god! I feel like a kid again! Darts, ring toss, ski ball, and more waited further down the boardwalk. Music filled the air, but when you listened closely, you could make out so much more. There were various cheers and shouts of victory, joy, and fear. Those screams had to be coming from the massive wooden roller coaster that towered behind the stalls. From what you could already tell, this boardwalk was easily 5 times the scale of the entire shopping street in Sunset Burn. You loved it. It was exhilarating taking the scope of the boardwalk in. You were going to implode if you didn't start exploring soon. The group began navigating down the wooden boards. Mrs. Suarez hastily grabbed onto Nicholas's arm for safekeeping and just in time too. The bustling mood of the area had Nicholas raring to go. He wanted to see, play, and explore every inch. Unfortunately, the 4 parents were not just as energetic as the hyper 6-year-old. With an affectionate shake of her head, Mrs. Suarez struggled to hold onto Nicholas's tiny hand as he attempted to sprint ahead. Ira, you might not let the children go. Huh? This child here and the rest of them. I'm sure they'd rather enjoy the park on their own at their own pace. They'd be safe with each other. She carefully weighed the scenarios in her head while Nicholas was too busy trying to forcefully move her forward to notice the important conversation happening. Your mom shared a glance. I'd be right with that as long as nobody left the boardwalk. It's large, but it's not too large. The kids are getting older and they've earned a little freedom from all our seeing eyes. Okay, adults and kids get to have their own day at the boardwalk. You caught with Elizabeth and Derek perking up. This clearly was a sign of a perfect day ahead for the two. And then Mrs. Suarez passed Nicholas off to her husband for a moment. She motioned for the older kids to circle closer. No more treats for Nicholas. He's had enough candy and cookies for the day. I'm counting on you to keep to that. Mrs. Suarez over there can't be trusted. Oops. He stood straighter and looked away from his wife, pretending that he had no idea what she was talking about. Her knowing smile cracked into a lighthearted laugh. You admired the way her eyes sparkled, teasing her husband. She moved her attention back to the rest of you, and both George and Elizabeth gave her confident nods. We've got this, Mom. Derek answered with an added thumbs up. Mrs. Suarez proudly beamed, letting her gaze go between her boys. Derek's right, we've got this. Oh, speaking of things, I have some money on hand for me and my brothers. Will you and Elizabeth be able to buy ride tickets and knickknacks or any that sort of stuff? I doubt the pocket change I have is gonna be enough for anything. I remember my wallet. You confidently put your hands on your hips, unimpressed. Elizabeth rolled her eyes. Good for you. Don't worry about that. We were gonna spend money on you two today anyway, so there's no harm if we let you have it. Besides, we don't get to go on trips like this every day. Go a little wild. Exactly. Well, we want you to be able to do things here. Mom dug into her purse and then she pulled out a handful of bills. She carefully counted out $15 and handed it to Elizabeth. Your sister was unimpressed at that amount and recounted the bills herself. Mom handed you your own $15 next and you quietly chuckled to yourself. You couldn't help but think about how it probably would have been a 20 if Mr. Holden was there. Oh no! Thanks, Mom. Thanks, Moms. We're all set then. We'll meet here again at 8 p.m. in the front of this first stall. Mrs. Suarez took her youngest arm and crouched down to his level. She brushed some stray hairs out of his face. Go and stay with your brothers today. Be good for them. With an eager nod, Nicholas bolted over to Derek and clung onto his jeans. Derek laughed at the sudden weight and put his hands firmly on the younger boy's shoulders just in case he decided to run off. The two sets of parents disappeared in the crowd, moving towards the nearby stores. Standing on your tiptoes, you caught your moms waving goodbye one last time before they were completely out of sight. Elizabeth spun in a circle, spotting all the things she might want to try. She might have deemed the boardwalk to be cool because she was cheered by the second. Eventually, her gaze returned to you and the Suarez brothers, and it was clear that her daydreams crushed back to reality. Next to her, George rocked up to his tiptoes and then back down. Catching your eye, he stopped and nervously inched a little bit closer to Derek. It must have felt awkward for little kid to have new two additions, to what was usually a special family affair. You offered him a smile, but tried not to stare at him. You were so eager to get going already, the clock was ticking, and you didn't want to miss a single activity. Derek awkwardly took a couple large steps forward. His strides were wobbly as Nicholas held onto him tight, but Derek was ultimately unfazed. Okay, we should start the day right. The face painting stall is up here near the front. Face painting! George brightened with that notion, and Nicholas shook Derek as hard as he could without shaking himself off. Derek's grin widened as he laughed at his brother's delight. Yeah, let's go. Lord. Oh, yeah. Bye, Cheetah. Go. Face painting? Are you serious? Nicholas was too absorbed with thoughts of paint to notice her attitude, but George's joy vanished instantly. You could pinpoint the exact sense. Oh my god, you could pinpoint the exact second Elizabeth remembered how much younger Derek's siblings were. Elizabeth uncrossed her arms, feeling a bit rotten. She cleared her throat and begrudgingly tried to pull back on her visible distaste. I don't need one. However, of course we can go over to the stall. Anyone who wants to do it should. That's great. Honestly, there's lots of time to do tons of things, so it's not a big deal. Sometimes it isn't what you want to do, right? Green's stare hardened. He directed the statement at both the youngest and the oldest member in the crew. Elizabeth snorted, displeased that a kid like Derek was acting like he was in charge. But Derek wasn't in his respectful guest mood, which is what Elizabeth usually saw of him in the neighborhood. Derek was entitled in the eldest brother role. He kept his staring her for another moment before shifting to you. Are you alright with letting my brothers get their faces painted? You can too if you want. It's actually a lot of fun. I want to get my face painted too. Nicholas victoriously bounced, knocking against Derek. He even caught a smile growing back on George's face. Before anyone knew, Derek carefully removed Nicholas's hands from his pants and took a hold of the young boy's hand instead, like his mom had done before. Derek cheerfully pointed ahead with his free hand. Let's go. Derek led the way for your group. You followed his line of sight to the row of shops and spotted a large, colorful umbrella. As you approached, you noticed two open chairs under the shade of that umbrella, one for the artist and the other for the person being painted. Next to it was a canvas posted with a collage of photos. The example showed off cheeks dotted with daisy sparkling gold stars shooting over temples, peace signs, and a whole rainbow of butterflies. Skulls inspired were options for kids who want to get their face painted and still look tough. Someone like Cove, you thought to yourself, chuckling. Of course, that was only a joke. You were positive Cove would actually get a fish or a shell or a dolphin or something like that. You peeked at the painting tools in the mirror on the wheeled counter. The artist appeared to be a teen just out of high school or maybe in college. Many of the stalls you had passed had younger people running them. The artist eyed your group carefully in return. Hello. Hi, welcome. I'm 𝐕𝐤𝐬𝐿. If that's how you say that. Would you like me to paint your face today? Yes, please. 𝐕𝐤𝐬𝐿 went over and plopped down on one of the chairs. Derek nudged George towards the other. Do you want to go first? George hesitated and chewed at his bottom lip, but he wasn't sure until he realized that no one else moved to take the open seat. He seized the opportunity and sat down. What can I do for you? I want a football right here. Without missing a beat, George pointed to his forehead. Elizabeth huffed quietly the conversation, but 𝐕𝐤𝐬𝐿 gave a serious nod. I can do that, no problem. The artist lightly brushed George's bangs aside and began to work. Next to you, Derek's brow furrowed intently as he studied the picture collage of options. What's up, Derek? But Derek continued to quietly mull over things. He pressed a hand to his chin and sighed. Nicholas will get what I get. I'm not sure what to get because of that. He doesn't like soccer as much as George likes football, so it's probably not the best choice. I could get a car for obvious reason, but Nicholas also really loves rainbows. But he also does cars on his shirt. You could get a Spire. Nicholas can pretend it's real and scare people. That would give him something to entertain himself. Oh yeah, that's a great idea. Derek ran an absent-minded hand through his hair as he imagined all the ways his brother could terrorize those within his orbit. He laughed. I think Nico's gonna get a kick out of it. The corners of your lips curled mischievously. You rubbed your hands together. Excellent. Oh my god, that looks so stupid. George's football didn't take long to finish it all. He got up with a delighted grin and tried to tip his head enough to see the painting without a mirror. He couldn't, but that didn't put a damper on his fun. One of his hands hovered around the football. You knew he was fighting the urge to poke at the wet paint. Derek slid into the customer chair next. Nicholas leaned his hands on the edge of the seat and intensely watched the artist get to work. As the painting took shape, the smile on Nicholas' face grew until he was crackling. He finally figured it out. Oh yeah, that looks good. The artist proudly added the finishing touches and then addressed the youngest words instead. 𝐕𝐤𝐬𝐿 toward the paintbrush. Now what do you think? It's awesome! Just what I like to hear. You're good to go then. Thank you. Derek took one last glance at himself in the mirror and hopped off the chair. He pointed at the open seat with his thumb. Your turn to go. Nicholas clambered onto the chair with a pinched brow. Once he got settled, he sat up tall like a big boy. Hello, what can I do for you today? A spider! 𝐕𝐤𝐬𝐿's gaze instantly went back to the piece they just finished on Derek. They immediately put together what was happening. That's a great idea. Let's get started. Nicholas nodded and then put all of his mental energy into holding still. You weren't sure how long the 6-year-old could keep that up before he started to squirm. While it was fun to watch Nicholas, you knew that your focus was being better spent deciding on what design you were actually getting. You were next, so you gave the canvas another look. You picked out the... Oh... cheek blisters and a painted nose. A rainbow shooting star, a heart. Oh, let's do a shooting star. Again, Xavier made quick work painting, and Nicholas was soon jumping out of his chair with a brand new spider adorning his cheek. He walked over and took his place in the chair. Can I get one too? Of course. The three brothers huddled together off to the side and proudly admiring and showing off each other's face paintings. Elizabeth crossed her arms, spotting you in the chair next. She'd been quietly hanging around the stall, attempting not to be too impatient. You were the last one left to go. I can start when you're ready. Right, you shook your attention away from your group and instead stared directly into the artist's face. You liked their pink hair. It was pulled back and tucked under her uniform hat, and from this distance you realized their eyes were more purplish than the brown color they looked when they were further away. So what can I do for you? Could you paint me a shooting star? I can work with that. The artist dipped a clean brush into the starting color, and then they reached forward to begin drawing on your cheek. The paint felt cooler than you imagined. Trying not to move too much, the bristles lightly tickled as they glided across your skin. Stroke by stroke, Xavier started with the outer linings and then filled in the center of the drawing. And before you knew it, it was over. You eagerly checked yourself in the mirror on the counter and beamed. Thank you so much. You're welcome. You got up and rejoined the others. There was a delighted pep in your step as you pointed out to the final result. Nice choice. Now that you and the Suarez brothers were happy with all your face paintings, it was time to discover the next activity. Derek quickly paid for him and his brothers. You dug out some of your money too, and then it was time to go. Have a good day. You too, Xavier. I don't know how to say that. Your group gave one final thank yous to Xavier before moving on from the stall. The flow of the crowd brought you all drifting down the boardwalk. As you traveled further in, you actually spotted your parents. The Suarez boys jumped up and waved, and their dad did exactly the same across the way. Next to him, Mrs. Suarez tried hiding her ear to your grin with her hands. Your moms had their heads close together laughing at Mr. Suarez's reaction. You jumped and waved. Throwing your hands in the air, you waved at them like crazy as you bounced in place. Elizabeth stepped aside away from the group, not wanting to be associated with the undignified behavior. Mom spotted you right away and pointed Mom in your direction. They joyously waved back to you and Elizabeth. Then your parents continued on with their own adventure. Your group traveled further down the boardwalk. You browsed the long row of shops, pointing out all the interesting things on sale. As the afternoon stretched on, your gang continued to enjoy the boardwalk. Elizabeth took long strides and led the pack, hunting her way through the crowd. Everyone was willing to follow her. The Suarez brothers were giving her some leeway since it was her first time there, and you were used to your older sister's attitude. She was making a beeline to the roller coaster, the singular big kid ride of the boardwalk, and nothing was going to stand in her way. You hung back with Derek, George, and Nicholas. Elizabeth was fine on her own, and you weren't there just for the rides. You wanted to spend time with your friend. Nicholas had stopped holding on to Derek and instead filting around on his own. Derek continued to keep a sharp eye on him. He occasionally pursed his lip when Nicholas was on the cusp of wandering further away than safety allowed. You watched the little boy as well. His attention wasn't nearly as single-minded as Elizabeth's. He eventually started to lag, unable to keep up with Elizabeth's breakneck pace. Nicholas tottered at the end of the group, slowing his pace, falling behind them, bursting forward to catch back up. It happened on repeat. His eyelids drooped and his head bobbed forward. There was an expression of vacant determination on his face. It was a special kind of stubbornness only the youngest people in society could muster. The type where the concept of stopping wasn't just ignored, it flat out didn't exist in their minds. Lucky for Nicholas, he had a more aware some big brother who could set limits for him. Hey, let's sit down for a second. What? It's a long walk, especially if you've got small legs. So you mean for you. That's right, I do need to take a break. Derek willingly accepted Elizabeth's shot at his stature. You could guess why pretty easily based on the leading tone. If Derek wanted to rest, Nicholas would want that too. Derek scanned the area and pointed out some tables in the distance. Elizabeth glanced at the paths ahead, but didn't argue at changing course. She picked an empty table that looked to be the cleanest of the selection. Everyone took a seat with a marked preference for sitting under the shaded half. You grabbed your water bottle and took a long, refreshing drink. It remained relatively cool in your tongue. Derek hefted Nicholas up on his lap. His brother wiggled slightly until he found a comfortable position. May has the right idea. It's water time. Nicholas gave no audible response. His eyes were completely closed. However, he did accept the water Derek placed into his hands. He sipped it sluggishly. Unfortunately, Nicholas tipped the water bottle forward until it started to spill. Oops. Derek snatched the bottle back, and Nicholas opened his eyes slightly, barely perturbed by getting splashed. He rubbed his wet face on Derek's shirt and stayed resting against his chest. Derek patted his head. You had to admit it was cute. Elizabeth and George drink their water too, sat eyeing the scene but not saying a word. You should drink, Derek. Thanks, I will. He pulled out his bottle with a smile and began to hydrate. George finished his drink with a final chug. He inclined his head towards his two brothers. Nicholas is gonna fall asleep. Oh my god. Elizabeth twisted the cat back on her bottle. She was ready to go. What now? Nicholas let out a small, snuffling noise, a snore. Derek looked down at his clearly sleeping little brother, but it was no issue for Derek. He brushed it off as easily as Elizabeth's insult. It's cool. I found our parents, and they can look after Nico while he naps. Mom and Dad won't mind taking him along since he's down for the count. They're probably sitting at one of the entrance or browsing your store or something. Elizabeth nodded, glad it wouldn't be her problem. George appeared more hesitant. Okay. He peeked at Elizabeth and then back to you. Derek smiled reassuringly and continued to pitch his plan. Plus, Elizabeth wanted to ride the roller coaster. Would have had to sit back with Nicholas anyway, since he's too short for it. It just makes sense for you three to do that while I'm dropping off Nicholas. So go get that ride. I'll catch up later. George sighed. He was being left behind thanks to Nicholas, but was placated not enough to not argue with his older brother. Can I go with you, please? Derek's brows furrowed at your request. Do you really want to come? It's just going to be a chore. You'd have more fun with Elizabeth and George. Don't worry about me. I can be another set of eyes so we can find your parents faster. I want to help. Derek gave you another minute to change your mind. When you did, he beamed brightly back at you. Alright, you're with me. Derek continued, not full of eagerness. We have 2 teams and 2 missions. Pass Nicholas over to the parents and ride the roller coaster while that's happening. Let's go get it done. May and I will meet you at the ride so you can stay there if you finish first. The plan met everyone's approval. Elizabeth faced Derek. Well, thanks then. Her tone was lukewarm and could easily be mistaken as sarcastic. Derek shot you a look, not completely sure if Elizabeth was being serious or not. You held in a snort and discreetly nodded back at Derek, willing to play Elizabeth's interpreter. Derek relaxed and smiled at your sister. Bye. Bye. He winked at you while Elizabeth and George began to get up and ready themselves. We'll see them soon. He carefully shifted Nicholas around from snoozing on his lap to buoyant in his arms. Gently he eased onto his feet. You dealt with your water and sprung up to your feet. Elizabeth, you better take good care of George. Elizabeth rolled her eyes and huffed. Don't worry, I get it. It's my job to be responsible now. Her sharp gaze fell to George. He immediately straightened up, nervous. Derek began to speedwalk, moving quickly but smoothly, not to just style his brother too much. You had to keep a good pace to not be left behind. There was no dawdling and no distractions, despite the best attempts of the Boardwalk to draw its guests' attention with dazzling displays and enthusiastic employees. Derek might as well have been walking through an empty hall. You followed your friend down the line of stores and peeked into the restaurant windows, but there was no sign of the parents. Your steps started to slow you down as you checked on the other side of the massive Boardwalk. This might take longer than I thought, but it'll be alright. He kept upbeat as he pressed his face into yet another window, still nothing. Maybe George and Elizabeth will have time to ride the roller coaster twice. It sounded like that'd be horrible for them. Though, there his enthusiasm flagged a little. It does suck when you're stuck with this, sorry. I'm not stuck anymore, I'm spending time with you. Thanks. Aww. Thanks. He blushed and busied himself peering into the next restaurant. After a bit more searching, Derek spoke again. Do you like roller coasters or are you scared of them? I think roller coasters are great. The corners of Derek's lips raised. We'll have to ride it again. We'll have to ride it together later. Elizabeth and George can deal with going again. His response made you feel glad that you were friends. Actually, my family really likes going to amusement parks. I've been to this Boardwalk probably more than 5 times, and we've gone to other places. Some have a lot more ride options. Oh, water parks too. He continued chatting along about his favorite water park as he searched down the Boardwalk. There are slides and raising levers, and those giant buckets that dump water on you. Lucky? It is a lot of fun, but really, it's nothing too special. Flustered and contradictory, he tried to fidget with his hands, only to remember that they were full of Nicholas. You have plenty of... Wait. You have plenty of time to catch up. You can keep coming along with my family. You listened carefully as he recounted his past theme park excursions. He ranked them on attractions, wait time, and stuff to keep younger family members entertained. With the conversation light, you both laughed and smiled as you walked. Wait. He stepped in his track. Nicholas lightly thumped against his chest at the sun and lost his momentum. Derek readjusted him, and luckily Nicholas stayed asleep. I totally forgot we were supposed to be finding our parents. I wasn't even looking anywhere. He shook his head to refocus. Yeah, we got a little distracted. With that reminder, you both continued searching. Sleeping Beauty occasionally let out a snore, but other than that, Nicholas didn't contribute to the quest. You wandered all around the boardwalk, eyes peeled for any sign of your parents. Oh no. The sky turned golden as the sun began to disappear under the horizon. You glanced out to the sea, and it looked as if the sun was swallowing the day. The lights began to click on. The already shiny buildings of the boardwalk were set aglow. You took a moment to absorb the sunset. It was nice to take a breath and ignore the noisy backdrop. It was then you finally got an answer to your mystery. No wonder you hadn't noticed before. Derek, look over there. Derek took a gander at your direction. He raised his eyebrows. He squinted into the distance before he dropped his jaw. As soon as he understood, he blurted out his shock. They rented bikes? Across the way, pedaling along, the two pairs of parents were having a lovely double date. They were far away from that you couldn't see much more than their helmets, but you could tell that Mom was laughing about something with her head thrown back. That explains that. He muttered under his breath in frustration. He gritted his teeth as the annoyance strained. The cold truth hit him, and he whispered, defeated, "They can't take Nicholas on a bike." Derek shrunk in on himself. He's their kid. They have to take him. Oh, well, no. What are we gonna do? Derek's eyes flickered over to yours, wide in distress. He turned back to the bikes. The parents were blissfully unaware that you were even there. Finally, he let out a tired breath that was dangerously close to his sigh. His shoulders drooped enough to visibly lower Nicholas. I can't do it. I can't give him them. Derek, I don't know about that. Derek flinched and worried his lip. But not wanting to keep the mood down, Derek tried to shake it off. A soft smile pulled at his face. He faced the sun and spoke into the slowly disappearing light. It's just one of those things. It happens. Nicholas twitched in his deep sleep, and Derek pulled him closer. You remember Derek saying before, when he was worried about not being able to attend the party, that it didn't happen last time, but he wasn't so lucky today. Don't worry, I've got a plan. You wait for him to continue with every word, more confidence filled with his demeanor. We should go see Elizabeth and George. They might be going crazy wondering where we are. You agree, but we're still concerned. Was it really okay? Sure, going back to the rest of the group made sense. What else could you do if Derek refused to approach his parents? But you still hadn't solved the Nicholas problem. You worried that this wasn't going to turn out the best for your friend. Alright. You backtracked to the roller coaster. Derek was shuffling behind you. He slowed down from the bustling pace earlier. He had to be tired. Beside the sign that let you measure if you were tall enough to ride, Elizabeth stood with folded arms. George waved. Hi, we're here. Elizabeth and George walked over and met you halfway. Hey. He scuffed one of his shoes on the ground. He felt the wave of Elizabeth's gaze and let out a nervous chuckle. He shrugged as if to say, yeah, the parents' plan didn't work out. Sorry for taking so long. They were sort of a problem. Duh. Nicholas shuffled into George's snort as he snored. Before she or George could ask for more details, Derek jumped in with the other day he hinted at. I'm gonna hold Nicholas until it's time to go home. The rest of you can keep having fun. Go wherever you want. George uncomfortably pulled at his shirt, stretching the fabric at its seams. I don't want to go. I want to help. He visibly felt bad about all this being put on Derek. You got the impression that if George was a little bigger than he had offered to take a turn, holding his baby brother instead. No, it's okay. I'll be fine. You really shouldn't waste all your time standing around me. Plus, who would help Elizabeth and May around the boardwalk? They haven't been here before. You know this place can make sure they don't get lost or don't miss the good parts. George turned to you and Elizabeth to hesitate with his answer. It would help me to know that we didn't send them off alone. They're our guests, right? Okay. Thanks, George. Derek leaned closer to Elizabeth and whispered, I don't want George to miss out on the boardwalk because of Nicholas or because of me. Please continue and have fun. Elizabeth and Derek made eye contact, and for all you could figure out, they had some sort of elder sibling telepathy going on. That was the only way you could explain it, because rather than arguing, she agreed to work with Derek. I'll do it. Elizabeth then pressed her lips together and considered you. She snorted and lightly flicked her nose. But I don't need May with me. George isn't in pain. Derek's brow creased, not expecting that. I can stay with Derek? You're not going off by yourself, so what do you think? May. Derek's voice was strangled and hushed. You don't have to do that. What about you? Why does it have to be just you? You could have suggested we take turns watching Nicholas. Derek shook his head and you felt your stubbornness spark. It's fine. Somebody's gotta be there for Nicholas, and it's easy if I do it, that's all. Well, now it's gonna be easiest if we do it together. George, show me something interesting. George gulped and nodded. His gaze bounced between Elizabeth and your standoff with Derek, and he wisely decided to take his leave. He led Elizabeth away, passing by sword stalls. He seemed to have an idea where he was going, so you figured he and your sister would probably have a good time. Derek shifted his weight from one foot to the other, busting around like the floor was on fire. It got more pink the further your sister and his brother got without you. May, you have to go. I'm the one who decided not to give him to our parents. It's not your fault. It's mine. You need to go have fun. You telling me I need to have fun kind of takes the fun out of it. When the other two were completely out of sight, Derek stopped his frantic movement and having spent all his excess nervous energy. You met his gaze head on, staring at the friend who simply couldn't help himself from being helpful. His face changed into something tense and small. You wondered how many times he did this, took on all the responsibility so that the others didn't have to be bothered. It seemed like he was called out on it too much. Slowly he smiled. His grin was tender enough to be genuine. Well then, if you're gonna be here anyways, we don't have to make ourselves miserable. It's me and you and Nicholas time. Yeah, alrighty. He lifted Nicholas higher and stood tall, ready to take on the world. Then his knees buckled and he blushed. Can we sit down somewhere? Yeah, that's probably a good idea. After spending all that time searching high and low, both of you needed a break. You both dragged themselves over to a nearby bench. It was thankfully empty and away from the crowd. Derek took a heavy seat and exhaled deeply. He kept Nicholas clutched close to his chest. It was a familiar motion, one that Derek must have done hundreds of times before. I admire how responsible you are. I mean, you're probably there for him as much as his mom and dad. It'd be hard for Nicholas not to be attached to you as he is. Oh, maybe. He appeared surprised at your observation and unsure how to respond. He leaned his head back and whispered to the sky. I don't think that's such a bad thing. You weren't sure what to make of that. He wasn't lying, but looked too sad for it to be the full truth. He didn't say anything more about it. After you both had settled, Derek carefully reached into his pocket. He struggled to dig around to find what he was searching for. Aha! He pulled out his special snack bag in triumph. It was still completely full and touched from this morning. Derek tried to pick out some morsels from the bag, but it was even harder to keep Nicholas from flopping over. Let me help. Derek flushed at your offer and became self-conscious of the fact that you noticed his difficulty. Thanks. Despite his embarrassment, he passed the snacks to you, took the bag, and he steadied his hold on Nicholas. Oh, I just need the granola chunks. You can leave the other stuff in there. Is that your favorite? Yeah, but no. You squinted at him in confusion. He laughed cheekily, having expected your reaction. It's my favorite snack in the bag, but that's not the reason I want it. The other stuff isn't for me. There's a handful of cereal Nicholas secretly likes, the way he can have something that's just not candies and cookies. I brought the walnuts for George in case we were out too long. He got hungry, and he dropped his gaze from you shyly. Oh my god. The shortbread cookies are for you, you know, because maybe you get hungry too. That's 4 handfuls. You always think ahead. Wait, that's so nice of you. Derek thought a lot about others. Giving up 3/4 of his snapback showed just how much. It's nothing. His tone was bright at your encouragement. Do you want any shortbread cookies? You can take it. Sure, thank you. Derek being more than happy to share. His planning had come in handy. You appreciated the snack. You carefully fished out some chunks of granola. They were slightly sticky to the touch. You dropped them into Derek's outstretched hand. Thanks. He popped one of the tiny oat clusters into his mouth and started chewing. You wanted to eat and share your own snacks with Derek. You found your baggie and unzipped it. You start snacking along with Derek. Every so often, you pluck out some old granola from Derek's bag and pass it over between bites. Want some? You held out your baggie in a place where you could just pour it out if Derek said yes. His eyes lit up in amusement as he considered your snacks. That'd be great. Sharing is caring. You tipped some snacks out of your bag for Derek and he gratefully munched on them. Both of you leisurely enjoyed the time. The bench was comfortable, the food delicious, and the journey was busy enough there was always something to watch. The munching and high-pitched snoring served as the only sounds between you for a while. You passed Derek the last cluster of granola. You had to really try to get out of the bag around all the cereal and walnut chunks. He accepted it with great enthusiasm and then took his final bites. He swallowed satisfied. He absentmindedly patted Nicholas's head as he peered up down the street. Something caught his eye and he lit up. You know, I was so focused before I kind of forgot where we were. This is still the boardwalk. He was as excited as he had been towards the beginning of the day. Want to walk around? There's a lot of interesting stuff here, even if we're only looking. Yeah, that sounds nice. Derek gave you a thumbs up and then hummed at Nicholas. Can you help me move him onto my back? That'll be easier for the long haul. You stood up to help. It took both of you fumbling around, but with effort you were able to get the little boy comfortably on Derek's back. Then you left the benches behind to explore the bustling waterfront park. Without consistently deciding to, you gravitated to the edge of the path closest to the sea. You studied the beautiful sea, your breath almost taken away by how much the water sparkled in the last flickers of sunlight. The evening remained pleasantly warm despite the encroaching darkness. Your skin felt taut under your face paint. The paint had started to crack after its long exposure to the elements. Is it normal for Nicholas to fall asleep like this? Kind of. Sometimes something is so exciting that Nicholas bounces off the walls just imagining it. By the time he actually gets there, he's already burnt out himself. I'm pretty sure Nico didn't sleep at all last night anyway, because he knew today was going to be Boardwalk day. Oh, that's cute. Derek grinned and pressed his cheek into Nico's. You stay quiet and continue to observe the sunset. It's kind of funny imagining what our parents are up to right now. Maybe they're popping wheelies all across the road. You nodded and listened to him continue to chat. Walking down the boardwalk was peaceful. The conversation was easy with the occasional giggle. Other groups of people passed by. Couples, young friend groups, and families of children all bustled about. You caught slivers of conversation ranging from mundane to philosophical. I don't know how the hell to say that. Derek glanced at the faces around him and grinned to himself. It kind of feels like we're parents and this is our kid. He twisted around to show you Nicholas with amusement. Oh. It'd be nice if that was true. Oh, really? You say that now, but you haven't seen Nicholas grumpy yet. Yeah. I don't know. You blushed, not sure to respond. Yeah. Derek's eyes widened at your shyness. It was contagious. He let out a nervous chuckle. You know, at least it would be like if we were old. You couldn't help but snort for his awkward reversal. He brightened at your levity. As he led you down the boardwalk, you noticed a new skip in his step. Hey, I have an idea. Let's ride the Ferris wheel. We've officially given up on our parents, and even Nico can do that. You're a genius. Derek let out a whoop and turned around like it was a little happy dance. You laughed, charged by his enthusiasm. You're gonna wake Nicholas if you keep doing that. Even if I did, we'd drag him to the wheel anyways. I'd rock him back to sleep. You smirked. Derek had an answer for everything. You both eagerly made your way through the crowd to get in line for the one ride that was an option for you. Derek cautiously waved past people, make sure no one accidentally bumped into Nicholas on the way. The line was short and it didn't take long for you to start boarding the ride. You piled into the cabin. Derek placed Nicholas in the corner of the mental bench. Mental? Am I stupid? Metal bench. He sat next to him. Nicholas snuffled when he was jolted, but didn't wake. Derek wrapped his arm around him to secure him from falling forward. Nicholas unconsciously leaned his head over to rest on him. You rested on the bench across from the eye of Derek. It felt sturdy under you. Derek's grin widened and he tapped his toes together as he waited for the ride to start. And it did. The carriage car rocked forward. Slowly you ascended into the sky. You could see the entire expanse of the boardwalk from the cabin. It was an amazing sight. From this height, the stalls and decorations looked like a magical land of toys. He glanced at Derek, curious if he was enjoying the view too. The sun had continued to sink as the Ferris wheel rose, and the light that reached inside the cabin through the little window was low. Sharp edged shadows cut across Derek's body. He stopped shuffling his feet and switched to tapping a finger against the top of his knee in a gentle, uneven beat. With Nicholas still sound asleep, it felt like you were alone with Derek. Oh my god. He smiled at you in good humor across the way, but there was an undercurrent that nervousness and the shake of his hands had betrayed it. Oh my god. In the small space high in the air with no one else anywhere around, Derek took the chance to open up to you. So, May, want to hear something kind of embarrassing about me? Only if you want to tell me. Okay. Derek clasped and unclasped his hand like he was working over bread dough. The bashful whisper of his tone made his secret hard to catch. Well, this sort of thing is kind of like a dream or something I've got. Wait for him to explain. Derek shifted shyly. His head went low, but his eyes glanced up at you. When Derek spoke again, it was in a tiny voice. I'm talking about having someone who's there when stuff like this happens. Your eyebrows shot up, but the rest of your body froze in place. I'm talking about having someone who's there when stuff like this happens. Your eyebrows shut up, but the rest of your body is frozen in place. Derek timidly sunk down in his seat. He brushed his little brother's bangs away from his closed eyes. It was a nervous, momentary distraction. Nicholas offered him some emotional support just by being there. I like thinking about the people I love. I really, seriously do like doing that stuff that makes me happy. I don't want to stop doing any of that, even though it's annoying sometimes. Annoying for me and whoever tries to stick with me. He showed an apologetic grin for that moment before his intense earnestness returned. Derek tightened his hands into fists. But I don't want to have to make that better by doing more for myself and less for them. What I really want is someone who's there for me, then it'd be even. My family cares about me, obviously, but a lot of time that's the thing I need help with. With a laugh, Derek liberally tousled the hair of the beloved pain in his side. He lay there, thinking of his brother, remaining blissfully unaware of the trouble he caused. The humor in his tone left Derek as quickly as it appeared. He couldn't get away from how serious the topic was or how much it truly meant to him. It'd be cool to have somebody who was on my side who liked me because of me, not because they're my family and are supposed to love me. Oh my god. First thing is that his eyes met yours, but then he instantly focused on the world outside the scuff-clouded window of the old Ferris wheel. You could see a loop-sided grin reflected in the glass. Oh my god. Don't tell my bros I imagine some pretty dumb things. You do have that. I'm here for whenever you need it. Ah, thanks. The foggy face you could make out on the window pane trembled. He wasn't ready to show it directly, but you were glad you still got a glimpse of it. He grasped the top of one knee and took it in a deep breath through his nose. When he exhaled, he carefully laid out a few more words for consideration. Hey, May, is there somebody that you think? Without thinking, you leaned forward towards him. You were hanging on his words like the captain, like you were stating him was suspended from the wheel. But he never placed the last part. Never mind, forget it. No, you can't leave it there, you're killing me. Sorry, but don't worry about that. No! Are you serious? Wait, I want to know what you're going to say. No! No, you can't leave it there, you're killing me, you joke. Sorry, but don't worry about that. It was just this idea I've been kicking around, but I probably should think a little more about it. A lot more, besides. Derek shrugged an arm and cocked his head down to the extra bit of company who was still gently snoring. It's kind of awkward to talk about all this personal stuff with my favorite brother right here, even if he is asleep. He chuckled good-naturedly, moving his hand to scratch behind his ear. Maybe I can try again later. The back of his foot knocked against the lower part of the outcropping metal seat on repeat. It sounded the end of that conversation, but that didn't mean nothing else was on his mind. Derek was always considering something, and most of the time it was other people. Things someone else might have missed or forgotten weren't taken for granted by him. Thanks for helping with the snacks before. That piece of appreciation was given easily. The next, though, was far meeker.
Thanks for coming with me.
Oh my god. Anytime, Derek. This time, Derek shared his bright and bashful face directly with you. You could always count on him, that was a certainty, and Derek knew that the sentiment was mutual. You would look out for him whether he did it for himself or not, whether he asked you to or not, and whether he wanted you to or not. That was just as sure. Not much more was said before the ride came to a steady, inevitable end. You disembarked from the cabin with Nicholas securely in Derek's arms. He strolled from the exit to the nearest stall to ask the employee what time it was. 8 p.m. was quickly approaching. We better go to the meetup place. Can you help me get Nico on my back again? How about I carry him now? Oh. Instinctively, Derek pulled back. He clung tight to his youngest brother, keeping the weight of the burden squarely on him. You waited calm and stable. Ultimately, the tension in his face and the hesitancy in his heart faded, and he accepted your offer graciously. That'd be great, actually. Thanks, May. Derek shifted his grip on Nicholas before he propped the small boy over your shoulders. You tucked your elbows around Nicholas's knees and hunched over so he wouldn't slip off. Nicholas draped heavily on your back like a fluffy card pattern cape. He really wasn't that heavy, but you could easily imagine how carrying the extra load could get tiresome after a while. Derek definitely needed a break. Perfect. Together, you wandered across the path. The people surrounding you were full of enthusiasm, bustling from ride to ride and store to store, but a quiet peace had settled between you and Derek. Your day at the Boardwalk was already coming to an end. The sky had gone completely dark by the time you reached the meeting spot, but the world around you was still awash with light. Street lamps bore down on you while a spotlight shot upwards to illuminate the biggest rides. You and Derek huddled at the side of the path. You wanted to stay out of the way of other visitors who were trickling off to the parking lot and the ones who were rushing the opposite way for a last-minute excursion. Oops. You hoped the strangers enjoyed themselves, but for you and Derek, plus the sleeping Nicholas, there was nowhere to go. At least not until you caught sight of your currently missing family members. We beat them. I'm not surprised. You used the break as an opportunity to readjust Nicholas. He'd started to slide a bit during the trip over. Since there were only 2 awake members of your group, you effortlessly kept your eyes peeled. Every figure approaching the distance was scrutinized and then disregarded as just another stranger. That process repeated for a few minutes, but eventually 2 shattered forms coming down the path stepped under a light and you immediately recognized them. George, Elizabeth! Derek jumped and waved his hands over his head. He was entirely free to draw attention to himself that way thanks to you, taking over, piggybacking Nicholas. Even on the other end of the boardwalk, you could tell Elizabeth was smirking. Oh, she got a face paint! When Derek's brother and your sister rejoined you in front of the first stall, you were proven right. She had definitely had a lingering smirk. It's very cute that you're taking turn with the precious baby. Ha! Derek barked out a laugh. Elizabeth's smile wasn't the only noticeable thing on her face, and even Derek wasn't polite enough to let her get away with it. Maybe, what's that on your forehead? The oldest kid hadn't returned exactly the same way you left her. She now had a bright white gulf embezzled on her skin with non-toxic water-soluble paint. I like your new look. After a small huff, Elizabeth plainly laid her case. Drew and I talked a little about sports we like. When he told me I did golf, he suggested I get face paint of that. I did, and it was fun. Aw, Elizabeth. Her chin was high and she spoke with defiance. Elizabeth absolutely refused to be embarrassed by her change of mind. George stood at your sister's side and proudly took credit for the accomplishment. She hadn't been doing before because she was just being an Elizabeth brat. Huh? Better than being a Borgie. George and Elizabeth chuckled at the quips. Apparently had unique nicknames for one another now. It left Derek nearly speechless. Wow. Clearly you and Derek weren't the only ones who went through a bonding experience this evening. That's so cute, Elizabeth brat. I'm sorry, what? I can't hear that last word when you said it. How convenient. Lighthearted laughter drifted around your group. Whether you were divided up or all together, Suarez and Taylor kids enjoyed each other's company. Your sister then exhaled calmly and followed it with a sage nod. I'll take Nicholas now. Oh. Whether Derek was going to agree or disagree with the offer, you didn't know, but Derek wasn't good. Oh my god, but Elizabeth didn't give him the chance. She wasn't suggesting what she thought she was. We got like 10 to 15 minutes left. The 2 of you should use it. What? You want us to leave him with you? Uh-huh. Derek took a hesitant step back and turned his face away. His expression tense the same way it had when he first realized Nico was going to be asleep for the rest of the trip. Nicholas is going to be mad if I'm not there. The resistance was weak and his middle brother spoke with much more boldness. Nicholas isn't going to know, and what he doesn't know will kill him. George? Derek was at a loss on where that had come from. You hadn't expected it either. George was never the rule bender. You must have missed even more than you thought during his time with Elizabeth. Come on, Boardwalk, live a little. I don't think that nickname works as well for me as it does for George. That's besides the point. See, even your darling babe wants you to stop being a goody two-shoes for a single second. Go have fun for Pete's sake. Yeah, hurry, you have to do stuff at the boardwalk while we're at the boardwalk. He shyly scuffed his sneaker on the ground with a doe-eyed expression that was more expected from Nicholas. It was exceedingly rare for anyone to tell Derek what the plan was. He was used to coming up with all the ideas and taking charge. Derek glanced at you. It was impossible not to smile at him. Alright, I'll do it. Me too. Finally! There was a quick passing of the book as Elizabeth took Nicholas into her hand. She carefully positioned his head against her shoulder and cradled his legs under her forearms. Derek found the whole satisfactory and trusted his youngest brother to her the same way he let her borrow the responsibility of watching out for George. No more time was wasted. You shot off down the boardwalk once more time. The flow of traffic had shifted even more from when you'd been waiting, with everyone except you moving towards the exit. You pushed against the tide into the heart of the park. You were sprinting hand in hand. The two of you had reached the other side for the two of you had reached for the other one instantly in the heat of the chase, and the other wanted to be separated in the crowd, but yearning to be as close as possible. Your feet and heart were beating hard. Derek shouted over the sound in a breathless, thrilled voice. The Lions are going to be short this late, but I don't think we can do two. Which one do we want to do? We don't have to go on a ride at all. Would you be up for riding the Ferris wheel again? I think that'd be a fitting way to end off the day. Even through heavy breaths, he spoke sweetly. It was more thrilling than any roller coaster would have been. You and Derek sped straight to your goal. You tilted your head back every so often as the towering Ferris wheel got closer as you ran towards it. As Derek had theorized, the line wasn't even half like it was for most of the day. It only took a few minutes before you were on the platform and waiting your ride. You hopped into the private carriage that wound by in the circle and took a seat on the hard bench. Oh my god. This time Derek didn't have the spot to Oh my god. This time, Derek didn't have the spot opposite to you. Instead, he nuzzled in on the same bench. His fingers curled around the edge, and he leaned forward to look out the window. He couldn't face you directly. That was okay, though. You didn't really want him to see the way you were watching him. And then you were slowly lifted into the sky once more. It was peaceful. It was a peaceful ride with few words shared. Derek's mood had turned contemplative with you being alone together in their cabin. Are you serious? No! I wanted them to kiss! But he was absolutely beaming when you returned to the solid ground and left the ride. Derek stared at the sparkling stars beyond the glitz and clamor of the boardwalk. There was a peace between you that hadn't been there at any other moment during your trip. Hey. His eyes had stolen the shine from the cosmos when he placed his gaze back on you. It was way too awkward to talk about this before with my little brother right there, but I just want to say I really like hanging out with you, May. I love my brothers and parents a ton, and my other friends are great too, but when I have to pick someone to team up with, I think about you. Oh. He shrugged his shoulders with a shy grin. Derek was someone you could count on for honesty, but sometimes it still surprised you what he was capable of. I think of you too. Oh, cool. Oh my god. 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 Ah! There was no haste or worry of separation, but Derek's hand still found its way around yours. You threaded your fingers together with his. The soft touch squeezed at your heart even more than your hand. Getting the chance to spend some time with truly just the two of you was more than you could have hoped for. You owed Elizabeth one. Despite taking an entire extra jaunt around the boardwalk, you still arrived at the entrance before your parents. However, there had been a shift in the group. Nicholas was awake? As soon as Derek noticed the small third figure standing by Elizabeth and George, he started like he was hit by a bolt. You felt him squeeze his fingers around your hand in his stunned state. He made a break for his siblings, bringing you along with him. The motion was not exactly subtle and caught the attention of the boy in question. He let out a shout when he saw your rapid approach. Well, technically it wasn't your arrival that had an impact. Derek's back! Nicholas sprinted away from the meeting spot, not wanting to wait a single second for the reunion. He crashed into Derek, wrapping his arms around his brother's thighs and sticking his head in between Derek's legs. Oof. It was powerful enough to knock Derek off balance. He had to release your hands so he could swing his arms out to the side to stop him wobbling. Once he was sure he wasn't going to topple over, Derek bent down and scooped up his hanger-on. Seeing Derek carrying Nicholas felt extremely familiar by this point, considering that it had been the case for the entire afternoon. But Derek wasn't sick of it yet. He could handle it for a little longer. Derek nudged his head towards the two other members of your party, encouraging you to come. Together, you and Derek watched the rest of the way to the boardwalk entrance while Nicholas clung onto Derek the whole way. George waved you over. Welcome back. Hey. And the moment you were in whispering distance, you were greeted by a hushed message from your own big sibling. Good work. She put a finger to her cheek and smirked suggestingly. It confused you for a second before you realized she had seen you holding hands even from a distance. Oh! Derek slowly kneeled to let Nicholas down. The little boy stood on his own 2 feet, but his 2 hands didn't detach. They only grasped the hem of Derek's jersey instead. While brushing his brother's messy hair, Derek glanced up at Nico's temporary babysitters. He stared at them questioningly. What happened was the obvious unspoken question. He's only been up for a few minutes. And he was really grumpy at first because you weren't there, but we got him talking about the dream adventure he had when he was sleeping to keep him busy, and that worked. It was really funny. Nico had a good time too. George beamed with pride at the excess, and you noticed how much closer he stood to Elizabeth. Your sister accepted his company just as welcomingly. They were their own partners in crime for the day. I'm basically positive that after about 5 seconds, he stopped telling us his actual dreams and was making it all up, but it was cute. Derek blinked at the two as if he witnessed a miracle. It kind of was in a small way. He was able to pass the mantle of responsibility and everything turned out fine. However, Elizabeth and George wouldn't be replacing Derek anytime soon, or likely ever. Nicholas may behave for a bit, but now that his biggest brother was here, the young lad wanted to be taken care of. His gaze dropped to the ground as he pulled at the end of Derek's shirt. Derek, my tummy hurts. I want an ice cream. No ice cream, Nico. That's not going to help your stomach. But you can have some of my snacks. I saved you part of it. Derek's tone really sold the idea. It was full of appeal from the fact it was his snacks. He could hype up a product better than any of the employees running games on the boardwalk. Nicholas brightened immediately. He clapped his own collar and leaned his head all the way back to look up at his brother's face from where he stood against Derek's legs. He wasn't kept waiting long. Derek pulled the baggie out of his pocket and shifted through the mix of walnuts and cereal to pick up the treat, especially chosen for Nico. Once he'd collected a small handful, he passed it over to Nicholas, carefully dropping the round cereal pups one by one. In Nicholas's tiny palm, the amount was overflowing. Nicholas gratefully received the offering. He shoved the whole thing into his face and ate directly out of his hand. It reminded you of feeding oats to a pony, except in this case, Nicholas was both the feeder and the fed. Derek nodded in satisfaction and rolled the bag over in his palm. George, these are for you. He gathered the last wayward pieces of cereal and then offered the well-worn bag of nothing but walnuts to the middle child. It's been a really long day and they're still right back. You should eat something. George didn't argue with that. He gladly accepted his brother's thoughtful gesture. Thanks. George plucked out just one from the pack, the hardiest looking nut in the bunch, and took a bite out of it. His gaze shifted towards Elizabeth, or Elizabeth, as George knew her, as he swallowed his snack. Then he asked a question. You want any?
Thanks.
You know what? I would, thanks. Elizabeth was the third person who took a turn of opening up a pan to receive her snack. George shook a few of the nuts into her waiting palm. Derek, you and May can have some too. Nicholas's fingers remained pushed against his mouth, but his distinct chomping stopped. He spoke muffled words filtered through a handful of half-crushed cereal. I can share too. He stuck his sticky palm up towards Derek's face instead of his own. The gesture had crumbs cascading down his shirt. Nico couldn't reach high enough to get all the way to his big brother's mouth. Derek shrieked with giggles and poked Nicholas's wrist to nudge a pile of soggy cereal away. He had to take a second to breathe before he could explain himself. I've got some cereal. I got some of the cereal right here. That'll be from you. Thanks, Nicholas. I'm gonna eat it. Oh my god. That logic seemed sound to Nicholas, or maybe just seeing his brother smile made Nicholas smile too. Either way, he accepted that not taking more of the cereal counted as him sharing it. But he wasn't done. Nicholas turned around on a dime, arm still outstretched, and positioned his hands toward you. Amazingly, he wanted to share with someone other than Derek. You kiddos are all way too nice. You matched Derek and laughed. You know he was trying to be nice, but it was just hilarious. Before Nicholas could start flinging bits of cereal in his eagerness to share, a warm voice boomed above the din of the busy boardwalk. Good evening, family and friends. It was Mr. Suarez, and not only him. You spotted all four of the parents weaving their way through the crowd. We're here. The sight of his mommy and daddy made Nicholas forget all about the feeding you and his pre-chewed snack. Ew, oh my god. He smashed the remaining cereal into his mouth so he could use both his hands to wave at his parents. Dad, Mom. Derek called back with equal excitement. The parents picked up the pace and came to gather around their children. Greetings were shared between adults and kids. Immediately, Mom noticed the face paint that was now adorning your group. You all look wonderful, so creative. Nicholas forced himself to swallow the mouthful. This was the moment he'd been waiting for. He sucked in a huge breath, pointed to his cheek, and screeched. Ah, that's a spider! There's a spider! Oh no, you're right, it is a spider. My goodness, it's terrifying. Don't make any quick movements, kiddo, it might bite you. Yes, wait there, I will help you, son. Mr. Suarez gave Nico's chubby cheek a pinch to get rid of the dangerous Antarctic. Oh my god, I can't pronounce that. He retracted his hand in shock when he realized it was in fact only paint. Nicholas snickered gleefully at the hubbub among the grown-ups. Mission accomplished. Mrs. Suarez then clasped her hands together and changed the topic. Well, everyone, I'm sorry you beat us here. Hopefully you weren't waiting too long. Nah, it's fine. I appreciate you here waiting for us. We went on a very lovely bike ride across the boardwalk. Really? You were out there pedaling around on bikes? Mm-hmm. Elizabeth and George's face of genuine surprise at the news helped to distract from the awkward, knowing glances you shared with Derek. Returning them was a hassle so low. That's why we got here late. Definitely worth it, though. And it was. And did you have a good day, children? Nicholas threw up his hands in the air to answer full force. Yeah! Derek softly patted his little brother's head. His voice was much quieter and distinctly relieved. Yeah. You, George, and Elizabeth nodded and offered your own points of agreement. It might not have gone as you had imagined, but none of you would consider it a waste of time. It was an experience worth having. That's great. I'm sure you made the most of what you have, but we better get going. It's very late. Perhaps we should pick up dinner on the way home? Absolutely. It's been hours since we left, and Nicholas can always sleep in the car since we won't be home before bedtime either way. All the kids except for Nicholas had their face go completely fat, and Elizabeth snorted. Mrs. Suarez didn't miss that instant reaction. She raised a brow. Derek straightened the bands on his wrists and broke the news to his mom. There was a glint of amusement in his eyes. Sorry, Mom. I don't think that's going to happen. Nicholas remained oblivious to the discussion going on about him. He was leaping and bounding from Boardwalk completely refreshed. His mother frowned. It was obvious to her what had occurred. Mr. Suarez was unflustered. He shared some dignified optimism. Well then, he'll be up to keep us company. Sure, we'll all be together. Those words reached the small ears of the youngest person there, and Nicholas held onto Derek's abdomen, liking the sound of that promise. His older brother looked down at him warmly. Glad to have you back, Nico, and George, you're such a reliable bro. He wrapped one arm around Nicholas and reached over to pull his other brother into the hug. George welcomed and reciprocated the embrace. The Suarez trio snuggled together in a tight squeeze, and their flaking face paint rubbed off on each other. Your gaze wandered from the public display of affection to your older sister. Elizabeth was definitely not a hugger, but you whispered your own sibling-y appreciation for her. Thanks for the help before. She gave a smug flap of her hair. Forget it. I owed you one after your grand stunt for me on Daddy Day. Oh, Elizabeth. Let's go. That was all that needed to be said, and your completed party took their final steps on the boardwalk, heading straight towards the parking lot. Mrs. Suarez was leading the pack. Mom, hey, Mom. Nicholas shouted and waved to get his mother's attention from behind while still using one hand to grip Derek. Guess what? Lisbeth carried me. She did? That's so considerate. Lisbeth. Lisbeth. Your moms are walking arm in arm, sharing hushed commentary with each other from a distance from the group and tittering over what they heard. You're so sweet, Lisbeth. I am. I felt that who carried Nicholas the most today should get the biggest say in what we have for dinner. I'd second that. Sounds fair to me, Derek. Oh. Then we all agree. I guess this means Derek will be our dinner tonight for the night. Probably. Oh my god, it's so laggy. Oh, I like this! Derek scratched at the spider on his cheek and chuckled eerily. He shrugged without comment and simply continued to walk. His little brother stayed at Derek's side and they bumped along together. He strolled with Elizabeth while the parents surrounded the sets of siblings at the front and from behind. Derek's hands were full with Nicholas and George, but he snuck a fond glance over at you. None of his excitement had faded. The night was still young and bright, and you could count on every person there. Despite being miles away from Sunset Bird, you felt right at home. Oh my god. What? No way. That's the end! Oh my god, everyone. But yeah, everyone, that's all for today's episode. If you guys enjoyed it, wow, I really like that, that moment, wow. I like that little moment with Derek, oh my god. I wanted to say so badly he likes this, but I guess we're gonna have to wait until step 4. But, oh. But yeah, everyone, I hope it's all, you know, hope that moment was good today. I don't even know how long it's been. It's probably been like an hour, maybe. But yeah, everyone, that's all for today's video. If you guys enjoyed it. But lastly, you're Gemma. Thank you for watching. Wonderful day, everyone. Bye!